In this video, we're going to discuss using arrays as function arguments, meaning that we're going to pass some arrays into some functions. So as we've seen in the past couple videos on arrays, oftentimes this is a pretty common, just this little loop right here that we see, where we just want to output everything inside of the array. And so one thing that we can do with this is we can actually just extract this out into its own function, which is great for good programming practice, as well as this is very useful for dealing with arrays because we'll want to output the contents multiple times. So we'll go ahead and create a function called print array, and it will take an int, and we'll just call it r. And this is very interesting, but we don't actually have to put the size in the parameter list here, because it will be created or populated for us when we call this function. Now, whether or not that is a good idea is kind of up to you. Oftentimes, you will see something more like this, where we have this constant size, and we'll take it out and make it a global constant, so that it's not specific to main. And then we can actually put size right here, which restricts this to the size stated above. And then we can just copy paste this out, or cut paste really. And instead of numbers, we will put R. Instead of numbers, we'll put R. But really, we'll go ahead and just do this. Why not? And we'll put an end line at the end. And then what this allows us to do is simply we can pass numbers, our integer array, into our print array function, and then obviously it will be called R in here. It's not a big deal at this point. And it will just output all of the elements for us. And so we'll control F5. We totally spaced that we need to write, of course, our prototype. And so we'll put int, and this is actually all that you need to put for the prototype. Once again, you don't need to specify the size, but since we have the size as a global anyway, why not throw it in there just for safety and for clarity? Now we can run it, and we can input our numbers just like from before. And so we'll say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and sure enough, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so let's just add a little label here. Cout contents of array. And down, and we will say, we're just going to add in some clarity things at index, or we'll say this element I equals, and now we can do this again, and it will be even clearer. Whoops, excuse me, sorry about that. 4, 5, element 0 equals 1, element 1 equals 2, so on and so forth. Contents of the array. Perfect. Now there's one thing that's very important to know when passing arrays as an argument or using as a parameter, is that it is always passed by reference. There's no way to prevent that. It's because of how arrays are built on the back end. You don't really need to stress too much about that. But know that we can do something like void increment elements, and it will take an int also of size. And so we'll have void increment elements, and we'll take int r size, and we will do for int I equals 0, I is less than size, plus I. And then we will simply say r at I plus plus. So we'll just increment everything by 1. So now we'll output incrementing elements. And then we will call increment elements on numbers. And then we will go ahead and test that those changes did in fact persist, that I'm not lying to you, that it was passed by reference. So we'll input a number 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, contents of the array 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we increment the elements inside this function, and we get 2 through 6. So once again, passing arrays into functions is just as simple as putting int, then the name, and then brackets, and then you can put a size, and I recommend that you do when you're using a global constant. And then it's important to remember, once again, that they are passed by reference.